You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus.
Hello, welcome to the program. This is Me and Paranormal You, the podcast, where your host Ryan Singer covers all topics that fall outside the normal. I am Nigel. I am the producer and the editor of the podcast, and I have to let you know, we do appreciate you listening to the program. As you know, if you're a long-time listener, and if you listen to the third year bonuses, which is what this is. This is a solo episode. It's like a freestyle where, quite frankly, I don't condone the behaviour or the technique or the style of Ryan, but he'll hit record, then he'll ramble on about all kinds of things, esoteric, occult, the paranormal, supernatural, the mystical, and otherwise unexplainable, for approximately anywhere from, I don't know, 40 to 60, right? And so, we're talking minutes, yeah, sometimes over an hour. Sometimes he'll send me a file that is upwards of 120, talking minutes again here, and I'll have to edit that down. I don't think you understand how much editing I actually am doing to the program here. There has been upwards of 35 minutes that I've edited out of previous 30 bonuses. Because, and I'll tell you, you think that some of the things that I leave in sound crazy. You should hear the things that I'm editing out. I've got to tell you, and now I'm not saying that Ryan says anything that's insensitive or of that nature, don't get me wrong, it's not that at all. At all. It's not about that. It's about how crazy he's out of his gourd. Out of his melon. I just can't let people hear some of the things he's saying, because you'd probably never take him seriously as a person who had ideas about something. And if you know Ryan like I do, I've known him for, oh gosh, going on 25 years, he can be quite grounded at times. And he seems like a normal guy. In fact, a friend of his once said, you look pretty square. And you should give people more warning about how weird you actually are. Because when people look at you, you look pretty square, mate. You look square on. Square on normie is how you look. So, I don't know, maybe Ryan took that to heart. He's kind of into this Jack Sparrow phase. He's adorning lots of jewellery nowadays. But, he's been into crystals for quite a while. Anyway, why am I telling you this? Because I'm going to do the episode today. We're going to let Ryan sit on the bench, is that how you say it? Ride the pine on this one. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to remove the subjectivity out of the podcast, and we're going to replace it with some objectivity. How about that? How's that sound? Now, I've been accused of being a bit of a materialist. I don't quite appreciate that. Clearly, I have an open mind. I am a vessel of information and knowledge, always seeking to better improve myself and expand my intellectualism. Now, having said that, Ryan will go on rants, and oftentimes he'll say things that, I don't know, not that they're irresponsible, but I don't know, maybe it would be best served if now I'm doing a radio trick here, because I've already done it, but I'm making it sound like I hadn't done it yet, but I've already done it, in fact. Now, what have I already done? I've taken some bites of audio, and I've put them aside, and I've saved them for a moment just like this. Just when I say I'll have to edit out some of the things that Ryan is saying on the program because they're too crazy. Long-time listeners are like, he said some really crazy things. He believes he can talk to portals, and he's going on expeditions trying to prove that. What could be crazier than that? Well, I've put aside some sound bites for you, some bites of sound that will show you. I think it'll make it more crystalline for you to hear some of the craziest things that I've edited out of the program. So I guess without further ado, and before I get into talking about some of the comings and goings in the world of the paranormal that I've been occurring lately, I figure we listen to this. So just these are some of the things I've edited out over the years from the Moncast. Oh, I think you'll have a better understanding how difficult it is to do my job once you hear these. So without further ado, let's listen to these bites.
So it's about 3 in the morning, and I'm driving all by myself. I think I'm outside of Effingham. And if you don't know where Effingham is, it's a city in Illinois. I'm on Interstate 70, or maybe it's still 44. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, 44 essentially is 70, blah, 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 blah. Not really. They're totally different, but they're the same. Do you understand? They're all the same, man. All the roads are the same. Try to tell me that I'm wrong about that, and I will never speak to you again, probably. But anyway, so here's what's happening. I'm on Interstate 44, eastbound. Very important to know which direction I am heading. And do you know what I mean? So I'm headed eastbound, and it's very late at night. I'm on one of my long cross-country drives, which I do all the time because I am a child of the road. Anyway, so when I was a baby, my parents used to drive me around in a car when I wouldn't stop crying or fall asleep because it would put me right to bed. How ironic is it that I have fallen asleep driving a car, totally destroyed. I totaled the car. I guess that's the word for it. I totally totaled the car. I was okay. Maybe the slightest bit of whiplash, but I didn't go to work that day. I was on my way to work. I was doing grounds crew at a country club, cutting the grass for the members so they could play golf and stuff like that. And so, because I got free golf after 6 p.m., that's why I did it. And it also was a money, it was a money job. You got paid money for doing it. And it was, when I was home from college for the summer, or was I in high school? It doesn't matter. I was doing it. I fell asleep driving. How ironic is that? Anyway, so that's the only time I've ever fallen asleep driving and crashed. I have fallen asleep one other time. I regret to admit it publicly on the microphone now. So the point is, none of this matters. What matters is I look up. I just happen to lean forward while driving. I'm alone, very late, maybe after 2 a.m. And I look up at the sky because I don't know if it was close to a new moon probably because it was very dark and there wasn't a lot of light pollution where I was. And I look up and I see a green light high in the sky. Could it have been a satellite? Go to hell. It doesn't matter. No, I don't mean go to hell. I honestly don't mean that because hell isn't real. So anyway, go to a play of existential dread. No, I don't mean that either. So I look up and I see a green light in the sky, very high in the sky, moving quite quickly from my left to my right at about a 45-degree angle downward, right? And it's headed, I would say, north to south, I suppose, would be the directional the directional coordinates, the angle, or the direction it's moving. And I see this green light, and it's very bright. It's moving quite fast. And I'm just like, holy. That's not an airplane because it's not blinking. It doesn't have the blinkers, and it's not a satellite. It's too low, it looks like, to be a satellite. Anyway, I was driving. I wasn't going to get on my satellite app, right? So anyway, I see it. I'm just mesmerized by this light. And I'm like, I need to follow this light. I'm going to follow this light, and no one's going to stop me. And then I realized, I don't have an all-wheel drive vehicle. So, lots of things will stop me, mostly myself. So I'm driving, and I see this light, and it's so beautiful. It is one of the most beautiful lights I've ever seen in the sky. It's almost like lime green, but fluorescent-y bright. Oh, I love that color. Anyway, it makes me want some lemon meringue pie. Or key lime. That's what I meant. I meant key lime. Lemon meringue can go to hell. There is no hell. it can go to a place of existential dread. Okay, fine. That's where key lime pie will not be going because lemon meringue will be occupying that space. Nonetheless, I see this light and I'm just like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And I'm captivated by the light. Have you ever been captivated by a light? And I am convinced in this moment, maybe it was because I barely slept and I'd been driving for 12, 13 hours, but I was convinced that this light would guide me to where I needed to go. So in that moment, I knew that I didn't have to drive my car. This sounds crazy, right? But I'm telling you, it's real. I decided I didn't have to drive my car. I took my hands off the steering wheel. You know, Jesus take the wheel. This was like, hey, aliens take the wheel situation. And I am not kidding when I tell you, for the next hour, I did not drive my car. I took my foot off the gas and I took my hands off the wheel. And my car drove down Interstate 44 or 70, whichever one it was. It doesn't matter. They're both the same. They're totally different. And for an hour, this green light, even though it disappeared quite quickly, drove my car for me. It drove my car for an hour. Oh.
So there was an example of one of the things I've had to edit out of the podcast over the years. And I think Ryan, in hindsight, would agree with me that no one needs to be encouraged to be taking their hands off the wheel while they're driving a motor vehicle on the interstate. I don't, never understood why some are interstates and some of them are freeways. It's an interesting distinction. I'm sure there's information about it on the internet, or I haven't looked into it. But the point is, we don't need the podcast, and we don't need Ryan telling people if you see something in the sky that you cannot identify, it's most likely a satellite. Don't tell them I said that, but it's most likely a satellite. Don't take your hands off the steering wheel. That is irresponsible and it's reckless. And it's dangerous. It's quite dangerous. After he had just said he had fallen asleep and totaled a car, I know that story quite well. He flipped the car over and over on its side. It rolled more than a few times because he went down into a creek bed after he hit, what is it, the fence on the highway there. What is it? It's the railings that guard you from falling off. Anyway, he was quite lucky he didn't die. He was wearing a seatbelt. He does do that. I have to give him that. But even if you're wearing your seatbelt, you should never take your hands off the steering wheel like that. For an hour. He said for 60. That's what he said. He said for an hour he didn't touch the gas or the brakes or the steering wheel. And are we to assume there were no other cars on the freeway? Is that what we are to assume there? The green light in the sky that he saw for, I don't know, he said it was moving quite fast, so let's say 15, 20 seconds. Then for the next 59 minutes and a half, steered his car for him, accelerated, decelerated, hit the brakes, moved lanes, put his blinker on, things like that. Is that what we're supposed to assume here? Oh, it's quite reckless and irresponsible to be talking like that on a public program. So that's why I did it out. And I'm going to give you another example here. This one is another example of just, he has people, he has characters and bits and things and voices that talk to one another here. This is an example of that. But sometimes it comes from nowhere and it goes to nowhere and it doesn't serve the program. So I have to edit it out. And quite frankly, it might make you worry about his mental health. And so, not that there should be a stigma about that, because there shouldn't be. But some things just don't move the show forward. That's what my job's to do, is to move the show forward, as a producer and editor of it, or kind of shape it, yeah. But there's an example of when it just goes off the rails. So let's listen to that, and I think you'll understand quite quickly why I edited it out of the program. Here we go.
Well, you can go back and you can see, that's the thing that's frustrating about some of this stuff. A lot of this hidden quote unquote hidden knowledge. It is not hidden. It's on the internet and it's quite easily accessible, and you can get your hands on it, pretty quickly. And it's, in fact, it's quite easy. Within 15 minutes, maybe, of searching around the internet, you can get your hands on it. And, and it's not that big of a mystery. Oh, it is a mystery? Oh, I don't know. Somebody's coming in right now. Oh, you want to get on the mic? I'm telling you it's a mystery. Oh, who are you, and why are you telling me it's a mystery? 'Cause the boy doesn't know nothing. He's too young. Oh, okay. I'm a grown man, but I'm assuming you mean me when you say the boy doesn't know nothing, which is technically a double negative, Morse. The boy don't know nothing from the tops of his toes to the bottom of his ass. Oh, okay, so you're getting a little aggressive in wanting people to think that I don't know anything. Oh, that's right, 'cause you don't know nothing from the tip of your Wilson's dagger to the top of your frayed hairs. Okay, so from the tip of my Wilson's dagger. Wow, that is, I don't know. I'm sure there's someone named Wilson out there that would probably be offended by this. Oh, you want to be offended? Yeah. I'll show you offensive. If you think that's offensive, then you can go get frickened. I can go get frickened? You can get frickin' fracked. Oh, I can get frickin' fracked. You can get fricked, and you can get fracked. I can get fricked, and I heard you the first time. Fricked, fracked, fricked, fracked. Okay, so fricked and fracked. I'll make a note of that, because I'm not going to say the other one. Because you're not going to say the other one. What's the other one? I'm not going to say it. You can't make me say it. Oh, okay, so you're not going to say it. Okay. I'm not going to make you say it. Clearly, if I can get fricked and if I can get fracked, clearly we know what the other one is. You don't know nothing. The boy don't know nothing. From the tops of his ears to the inner vacuum of his stomach lining. Of the inner vacuum of my stomach lining? Is that what you, like, so you're saying that the inner vacuum of my stomach lining? That's pretty ridiculous, actually. Well, so you ridiculous. You're such a nonsensicality to you. Nobody believes a word you say, and nobody ever will, nobody ever has. Time is a flat circle, but you're just a dumb frickin' frack. Okay, so time is a flat circle, but I'm a frickin' frack who also happens to be dumb. Is that what you're saying? Frick and frack. Your stomach is a void. No knowledge, no sense, no commonality ever to be found. Oh, now you sound like the worst. This is like the worst fairy tale that's ever been told. You think this is a fairy tale because you don't have no sense. I'm telling the people listening, don't listen to the boy. The boy ain't got no sense. The boy is void of knowledge. The boy is a vacuum of sense. He's got no information worth serving. He's a freak and he's a frack, and he'll never be any different than that. Okay, so I'll never be any different than a frick and a frack. I'll be nothing but a void of knowledge and a vacuum of sense, and that ain't even the tops of it, 'cause you ain't got nothing on the bottom of your feet except stupidity and ignorance, grimed up and patted down like pancakes, made from the worst batter of all, batter that has powders and dirts and waters drank from the fountain of stupidity. The what? Why is this becoming such a personal attack on me? I'll tell you, 'cause you're a freak and you're frack, and the water of stupidity runs through your veins, and it's so thick. It's so thick, it's almost like a sludge. The sludge of stupidity going through your veins, 'cause you don't know nothing from the bottom of your lobes to the tops of your knees. You're nothing. You're absolutely nothing except patchwork of misinformed ideals. I'm like a quilt of misinformed ideals. I'm Patrick. That's what I said, 'cause you're a frick and you're frack and you're a void of knowledge. You're a vacuum of all things sensical. No one should listen to a word you say, because nothing you've ever said has merit. Nothing you've ever said will ever be, and will ever could be, and ever should be. Okay, I think this one needs to, you probably need, I didn't invite you into the program. It doesn't matter if you invite me into the program. It's my program now, and I'll take over this program. We're gonna call it the frickin' frack hour, 'cause you ain't nothing but a frick and a frack. And I'll tell you another thing. The third one you are, you guessed it, you're a
Okay, so I did you a favour there and cut that one off there. You may or may not be surprised to know that interaction with whatever character was living inside his mind on this particular night went on for about another 27 minutes. So, needless to say, it was my duty and quite frankly, it was my privilege to edit that entire interaction out of the podcast. He was talking, if I'm not mistaken, they were talking about, he was talking, although with Ryan is often they, talking about, Rosicrucianism, right? And I think there was some Francis Bacon talking there, talking about New Atlantis. He had purchased a book, I think at that point, quite recently, called New Atlantis, written by Manly P. Hall. And anyway, it was referencing some Francis Bacon talking, obviously alchemy. Ryan gets a Jolly Roger over alchemy quite often. And then whoever that person was sounded like a troll of some kind. Anyway, they interrupted the program for another 27 minutes after that snippet I played you. So close to half an hour. Could you imagine? Could you imagine sitting there for 30 minutes and listening to the frick and the frack, whatever that was supposed to be? I don't quite understand it myself, but I'm just the producer and the editor of the podcast. I've got one more snippet here. Ryan's a comedian. He loves the rule of three. So let's throw a third one in there, just so you have some idea of the different types of, I guess like that character had said, that nonsensical nature of many of the things that he starts talking about here. So let's play that. Let's cue that one up now.
Oh, what did I want to say? Oh, that's right. Okay, we're getting back on track. I promise. We're getting back on track. There was a lot of things that we were going to be talking about on this particular episode. We were talking about possession, and we were talking about what exactly is it that is occupying space in the human body and the human consciousness when it comes to possessions and or attachments and things like that, and how is their room and how is their space and how many could be there, and what is it that is actually doing the thing that it's doing. You know what I mean? What is the capacity? Oh, capacity, that's a good word. I love the word capacity. Capacity. And it's interesting because incapacitated is another word it's not a good word. I mean, you don't really want to hear it, but it's an interesting word, incapacitated. You got to keep them capacitated. That's not the song, but you know what I mean. But capacity. Oh, God, I love a word. And sometimes when I love a word so much, I have to like rhyme the whole alphabet. It's just a thing I do. It's not OCD. It's just a thing I have to do. So like capacity, for example, I have to go through the whole alphabet. So I would go, opacity, babacity, capacity, decacity, what's out of that? Oh, yeah, epacity, fapacity, hapacity, eopacity, japacity, lapacity, capacity, lapacity, mapacity, napacity, papacity, I forgot. Oh, opacity. Oh, that's actually its own word. Opacity, papacity, quapacity, rapacity, sapacity, tapacity, uopacity, vapacity, opacity, zapacity, yapacity, and zapacity. Okay, good. I got through them all. It just happens. I had to go through the whole alphabet. I've never done it with the word alphabet. Alphabet, balphabet, calphabet, dalphabet, e-alphabet, falphabet, alphabet, e-alphabet, alphabet, hi. Okay, alphabet, e-alphabet, jalphabet, calphabet, lalphabet, malphabet, and alphabet.
Okay, there. I showed some mercy. I spared you from the rest of that exercise, whatever he was doing there, rhyming through the alphabet, but just changing the first letter of a word that he likes, and then going through the whole alphabet about it. I don't know why he does that. And you might be like, oh, that's might not. It seems harmless, Nigel. I don't know why you'd edit that out. Well, he ended up doing about 15 more words after that. 15 more words. And if nothing else, it was an exercise in shining a light on the weakest parts of the alphabet when it comes to Ryan's knowledge. Because, he starts strong, he'd get a little queasy in the middle, and then he'd finish strong. It seems like he had some confusion about, H, I, J, right before that. So, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. That was the area for him that seemed to be a little bit trouble. Oh, so that's the one thing we did learn. We learned, well, I learned, because I had listened to 17 words of him doing his rhyming exercise. I had to listen to him struggle in that section there, those 6 letters. So you understand why I edited that out. I did it for you, you know what I mean? I did it as a public service there for you, so you didn't have to go through it all. So you understand why I edit a lot of this nonsense out of the podcast, because you might be thinking to yourself, well, there's barely any paranormal information that's given in a 30 bonus anymore anyway. Well, imagine if I didn't edit all this stuff out. It would be absolutely nothing. It'd be intolerable, actually. I'll put my name on this too, It's also a Nigel production here. Quite literally, because I produce it. Oh, what's that? He's showing up here. He's coming in now. Who wants to do the show now? He said, he told me I could have the show there. Oh, you're on mute. I've got your microphones muted, Ryan. No one can hear you. I'm pretty good at reading lips, so I can kind of understand. But you want to come in, you do have some information you'd like to talk about. Well, okay then. Well, I think you got the point. Another time I will come in and bring some actual objectivity to the program instead of subjectivity. But I hope you're ready for some subjectivity, because Ryan's about to give it to you. That's what he does best. So thank you for listening to me and Paranormal You. Let's get to your host here. I'm going to do a commercial break then? Okay. Well, he's got some commercials he's got to throw in here. Someone's got to pay. He does pay me quite well. That's the one thing I got to say. It's kept me here. He pays me more than he even pays himself, Dan. That's quite fair. It's quite fair of the man to do that. So that should be stated for the record. Quite fair. No one would ever say that he's not a fair business person. A very fair business person when it comes to dealings. I do appreciate that, Ron. So let's keep the lights turned on here, and we'll be right back. Over at patreon.com, you don't have to listen to the commercials. You get commercial free. Patreon.com/Ron Singer. Just search Ron Singer or me and Paranormal You. You'll find the Patreon page. $3 a month there. Gets you no commercials. How about that then?
I'm not sure I want to know what has been happening here. Is it the inmates running the jail or the asylum or whatever they say? When the cat's away, the mice will play? I don't know. And I don't know if he said this. Due to the nature of my recording style, oftentimes I'll record an episode, but I don't listen to them, right? Because Nigel does the editing. So I don't go back and listen. I mean, he'll take out some like ums or something. I don't know what he does, right? It's a pretty easy, to be quite honest with you, it's a pretty easy job to edit the podcast. You can ask my buddy Alex Stein. He would be glad to tell you that I'm a pro. Every once in a while somebody will want something removed, so they'll send me a note about it during an interview, and so of course we'll take that out. And then, sometimes I might give away a piece of information I'm not supposed to, so we'll go back and edit that out as well. But outside of the rare occasion where, I say somebody's name who didn't want their name said or something, I would say it's about 1 out of every 6 episodes that I record that any editing needs done at all, other than, some balancing of the audio and maybe some noise removal in the background, but that's it. So, so I pay him pretty well for that, considering that there's not a lot to do. There's very little to do, actually. I don't even remember the last time I've even needed something edited. It's probably been a few months. So, apologies about the sporadic nature of the release of the episodes. I've been traveling all over the place. I'm recording from an undisclosed location, but you can probably guess that I'm no longer in my apartment in Los Angeles, the Tesla Baby apartment. I don't know why I'm calling it Tesla Baby. It doesn't make any sense to call it Tesla Baby. And many people have been messaging me, and yes, in fact, the podcast and all these other things that are referencing the Tesla conspiracy theory with the tow truck drivers and the blah, 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 that is, in fact, my apartment. That I'm moving into, and where I'm actually, my stuff is there. I'm just not going to be there now, probably for a few months. So, but I'm happy to be recording from a place I've never recorded before, which is exciting. So, I love recording in new places. So anyway, so thanks, Nigel, for, I guess, recording for almost half an hour. I don't know what I'm sure he'll probably edited himself down to a couple minutes. He's pretty modest about all that, because I got a lot to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about the Haunted America conference that's happening this coming weekend. So next weekend. So it'll be the weekend after Father's Day, which is when I'm recording this, is right before the Father's Day weekend. So, after that, because the Prism world premiere, the device created by Joshua Shawn and worked on by Matthew Jackson, in a beautiful collaboration of ITC Genius, will be debuting at the Haunted America Conference, which is basically in the greater St. Louis area. And if you're in that area, I can't implore you enough to go, because it'll be Matthew Jackson and April Slaughter. Oh, I mean, what a duo those two are. Doing they're doing a thing. Right. And then there'll be the premiere of Prism at the Haunted America Conference. Oh my gosh. And, your guy right here is going to do his damnedest to get out there. So it looks like I'm going to get out there, and try to see this world debut publicly of Prism, which is the device we've been using. We used it in January, a different version of it. Obviously, they've been working diligently on it. Joshua Shawn is he's a beautiful madman when it comes to this. And then we used an updated version in May, and now it's even been updated even more since, and tweaked and made even better than we used it a month ago when we were at the Florida location. So that's going to be super exciting. I'll be excited I've got some things that I've been told about it that I think I might, gosh, I don't know if I should say it. Nigel might have to edit something out, actually, for the first time in months. Okay, I won't say it. I'll make your life a little easier, Nigel. Yeah, so anyway, the Haunted America Conference, you can, it's not too late to get tickets and go, to go get your thing, you know what I mean? To go have a good time and go to a sweet conference and learn some stuff. I don't know, be entertained to a certain degree, and hang out with some like-minded people who have common interests, which is not something we always get to do. So go to the Haunted America Conference. Go hang out with some other beautiful weirdos who understand that death isn't real, and that the universe is vast and expansive, and that we are not alone, and, have a good time. That is my recommendation, and that is also what I hope to be doing. So, having said all of that, I'm getting into this course. There's something called the Essentia Foundation, and they have free online courses, and there's one called Analytic Idealism, and it looks like a doozy. What it's about is overcoming deeply ingrained, culturally inherited, unexamined physicalist assumptions. And it's a slow process, although ultimately very rewarding. And, it's recommended that you follow the courses slowly. That's what I'm diving into this week. So obviously I'll be reporting back about that. Because you know me, I'm an idealist, even though I couldn't even tell you what it is. Although I could tell you what it is. The foundation of the universe is consciousness, right? And everything else springs up through that. Because consciousness is still this miracle, lest I use a word that has, religious connotations, miracle. Consciousness is a phenomena that is undefinable currently as far as origins and everything else. Have you been watching Dark Matter on Apple TV? It is a pretty cool show that deals a lot with, the topics that we've been diving into over here for the last handful of, 10 years, multiple realities. And I don't know, it kind of launches from Schrodinger's box and superposition, which is a lot of shit I don't understand fully because I'm not a scientist, but boy, do I love it. There's a lot going on, right? And when it comes to, this is something that I think is an interesting transition. Now, when does, we've talked about this before, when the researcher becomes the investigator, and when the investigator then comes full circle and becomes the researcher again. Now, to be clear, I don't think these two things are ever completely separate from one another. I think they're happening simultaneously amongst one another, layered, and one just has maybe a little more attention than the other at times. And so when does the researcher become the investigator, become the experimenter? And then oftentimes, this is maybe how it happens, I guess. I suppose we're laying it out here for the first time. I've never said these words out loud like this. I'm forming these thoughts in the moment. Such is what it means to be a person with consciousness, right? So a researcher eventually becomes an investigator. To me, it's inevitable, right? This is the inevitability of curiosity to the universe. Let's lay it out like this. So the inevitable course for the curious natured seeker, right? Or that's a lot of words. Maybe we can just call it, the inevitability of someone who's interested in these things. The researcher becomes the investigator, and the investigator becomes the experimenter, and the experimenter becomes the experiencer, and the experiencer becomes the believer, and then the believer becomes the researcher. Do you see how it all kind of goes full circle? And I think these things are interchangeable. So what do we lay out there? How many words did I use? So we've got researcher, investigator, experimenter, experiencer, and researcher. So that's 5. So that's going to be the 5 points of this circle. And I think they're interchangeable, much in the same way that time is not linear. I think these steps of being someone in the world of the unexplained, of the paranormal, much in the same way, these things, it doesn't matter which order they came in, they will ultimately, if your curiosity is left unchecked, they will lead to one another and they will bleed into one another. And then they will layer on top of each other. So I think we can agree, because obviously sometimes the experiencer becomes the researcher, becomes the investigator, becomes the experimenter, becomes the experiencer. The experiencer becomes the researcher, becomes the experimenter, becomes the investigator, becomes the believer. Or the experiencer becomes the believer, becomes the experimenter, becomes the researcher, becomes the investigator, becomes the experiencer. Right? I don't know. If you're diving into these things, I could just change the order of these 5 words over for the next 5 minutes, and maybe I'll do that just for a fun little exercise, because it tickles my brain. I'm not going to lie. It tickles my brain. It feels good. It feels good to have your brain tickled. Every once in a while, you want to get your brain tickled. Every once in a while, it's good to have a little tickle on the brain, on the cortex. Okay. I don't know who that guy is, but he likes to have his brain tickled, and we don't need to talk to him ever again. So So these 5 things, these 5 states of being in the paranormal, right, are interchangeable, overlapping, stacked on top of one another, and they're essentially all the same state to a certain degree, right? Give or take. They're like, it's like 5 circles all in like a Venn diagram overlapping. On the inside is the flower of life. Okay, wait. If that is actually true, that would be pretty cool. But I got something in my throat. Hold on. It's the truth. No, hold on. Give me a second. Okay, I'm okay. I had to have a sip. I had to have some liquid. So we're talking about the 5 states of being in the paranormal, and I don't know. I'd be interested to hear if you think there's 6, or if you think I'm making too many. Maybe investigator and researcher should be the same thing, or experimenter and investigator should be the same state of being. I don't know. I feel like they're different. I think the investigator, let's say the investigator is someone who goes out and, with cameras and recording devices and other paranormal equipment, and they're out there trying to find evidence of the paranormal. And an experimenter would be someone who sets up a rigidly controlled experiment using the scientific method. I think, to me, that's the distinction between the two, and that's why I'm making them separate. The researcher, on the other hand, and gosh, don't we love researchers, especially the people who are very good at it, whether it's, and I think there's currently there's a 2-week running plus Jeopardy champion, and she's an archivist. So, like professional researchers, they're back in the day we used to call them BAs, badasses. My buddy Darcy is a BA researcher, a badass researcher. It's, professionally is what she does. The idea of being so good at that it's fascinating, because basically it's the retrieval of knowledge, right? It is the mining for information and just truths, I guess, or just things that are so cool, right? Anyway, so what were we getting at? Oh, I love a researcher. I love someone who goes down rabbit holes, because I do the same thing, and I don't love them because they remind me of me. Although, can we all just drop the facade and pretend like we don't love people who remind us of us to a certain degree? But there's also the people we love because they represent something that we haven't been able to be, or something we can't do, or something we're not tapped into. We also love those people, right? Like, think of all the musicians I love. Oh my gosh. You should be thinking of all the musicians. When I think of all the musicians I love, and I'm like, I could never do that. Could I never do that? Well, it's possible that I could never do that. I haven't tried, but that's the thing. I could never do it. And the reason I confidently say that is because I don't have the time, resources, or energy to devote myself to be able to do it, because I have other things that I am devoting my time, energy, and resources to. And also there's something about ability that you're born with that it shouldn't go without, some merit there. Like, when it comes to singing, or comedic timing, or writing novels, etc., or painting, or being able to paint with oil, or graphic design, or, things like that. There's certain people that are just, they're just so good at something. And it's because they love it, usually, or they're just physically perfectly built for it somehow, through genetics of some kind, I guess. I don't know. I'm no DNA expert, or geneticist, but I love a researcher. God, I love the people who just are consumed by, listen, I love getting consumed by something. Okay. I love when an idea or a thought or a whimsical notion encompasses the entirety of my being. I get swept away. I get swept away constantly. You might argue that being swept away is one of my joy stations, from like Joseph Campbell talks about. Maybe finding an idea that is fascinating, that is endlessly interesting. Maybe that is a joy station for me. That's why I love a library. I'm going to go to a library tomorrow, maybe. I'm not sure if I'm going to go to a library tomorrow, but I got a lot of things going on tomorrow. This weekend is, obviously it's a holiday weekend for a lot of people. I am not a father, but so I don't know. But definitely I'll be spending a lot of time in libraries in the next month. I can't wait. I'm excited. I want to explore university libraries because those libraries are like supercharged, heavy-duty libraries. You know what I mean? Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. I remember when I was in college there, going to that library and just being like, God damn, I love this library. I remember being at Bowling Green State University's library when I was a student there and just being like, golly gee willikers, I love this library. I love a library. It's just who I am. So, researchers. We need the researcher in this world. Those who are interested, people are, and it's got kind of a negative connotation because of the conspiracy world, like do your own research. It's like, okay, you can do the wrong kind of research. That's pretty obvious, I think. For example, if you are researching and you are only finding source material that is, I don't know, what's a good word, fabricated, plagiarized, created with misinformation and ill intent at its heart, like the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion would be a great example of something that is all of those things. Anti-Semitic bullshit that was used and still gets referenced constantly in the conspiratorial world today. And, many of the people who are espousing many of those ideas that were, falsely spread and fabricated in those don't even realize that they're doing it, which is, it can be discouraging sometimes, but you can't stop. You can't give up. You can't stop trying to tell people about it. And that's why I reference it quite regularly on here, because it's important that people remember the origin stories on a lot of the, the Jews control the money, the banks, blah, blah, blah. We got to remember where that bullshit comes from. And it's poisonous. So, God, it's the researchers are important. So basically what I'm saying is you can research the wrong sources, but that's what makes a good researcher. Someone who understands and figures out, okay, these are bullshit and these are all based on bullshit, right? That's why there's these, I've always admired, I had a great admiration for the academic type because they do the work, right? They get in there and they do the footnotes. Oh, that's heavy lifting. When it comes to research and you're making footnotes and you're writing a book. First of all, if you write a book, hat tip to you. But that is nonfiction, right? And even if you write a book that's fiction, hat tip to you. I've written a book, but it's more like drawings and comedy stuff. You can find it. Ryan Singer's Notebook. It's on Amazon. You can buy it. And I got 2 more books in the pipeline, hopefully coming to you soon. Okay, so just keep an eye on the future for those, or an ear towards the future for me talking about those. Obviously, I'll be nonstop talking about them when I'm ready to let you know you can get them. So anyway, but the footnotes. Oh, you're talking about references and footnotes, and oh my God, that's bibliographies. Oh, you're doing heavy lifting. You're doing big time heavy lifting. Now AI is making these young people lazy writers. Yeah, blah 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 blah. But you can tell, right? Just like I can tell. Because there's an interesting component to all this. When we're moving into the new world quite rapidly, frankly. And it's like, hey, keep up or get left behind. There's an element of that, but there's also like, hey, can we all just take a breath and like allow ourselves to be people and not freak out that we don't need to understand everything instantly? Okay, that's just not how it works. Transitions are important. That's why there's rituals in life. That's why there's prom. That's why, there's all these, whether I like it or not, like these baptisms and all these, wedding ceremonies, funeral ceremonies, big moments in life, these transitions, the journey of these characters, and the characters are all of us, right? In a story, because science is a story too. And this is something that I'm glad I just remembered off the top of my head. And it's not related, but I'm going to get back to it. When we come back after this last commercial break, I want to tell you about what I think the story is in science. And some scientifically minded people, they might shy away from this at first, but I'm telling you, it's not me being like a hardcore idealist telling you your materialism is bullshit. I just trust me. You just have to put a little trust in me on this one. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. We're going to be right back. We're going to keep the lights on. Ain't that right, Nigel? Don't say anything. I've got you muted now. How does it feel, Nigel? Okay, so we're back. And to the patrons, thank you so much for your continued support, even amongst these sporadic times where does an episode come out? Does it come out? Does it come out? I don't know. I got some killer interviews queued up coming for you here in the very near future that I'm so excited to bring to you. And, some classic guests, right? Some all-time favorites, plus some brand new guests never before on the show. It's a perfect mix of everything old and new. But all of the conversations have one thing in common. They will be new and fresh. And I think they'll stoke your paranormal fire. So I know I'm so excited about them. So anyway, and you don't have to listen to them with commercials if you're over at the Patreon page. So, and I'm set up shop, by the way, for the next month or so. I almost moved to Mount Shasta for a month. My buddy Forrest, he really hooked it up, and I was unable to because of some scheduling things that had popped up. And oh, baby, I almost lived in Mount Shasta for a month. I almost lived in a room of someone's house that had an altar and 2 saunas. They're like a meditator and a yogi or something. That's like their job. And I was just going to rent one of their rooms, and maybe I'll do that here in the future, because that sounded like, talk about getting some work done. Holy Mount Shasta energy. Okay, maybe another time. I will be going back there later this year, though, 100%. So the science story. So science is telling us a story. This occurred to me, I think, I did beast mode hike, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe, at my favorite park in Glendale, Brand Park. It's about a 3-hour hike. It's, about 7 miles round trip. It's just this really wonderful existential exercise and pushing yourself and reminding yourself what you're capable of doing if you just don't stop climbing, right? And that's why I do it. Anyway, and it's also beautiful out there, and there's a ton of lizards, and I get to go to Lizard Rock. There's this place on the trail that I called Lizard Rock. I'm writing a story in my brain. It's a fantasy series of novels, and everybody's a lizard, and this is the place where they go. This is where their gods reside. The gods of the lizards reside at Lizard Rock, right? And it's just this beautiful area where there's just lizards bouncing around, but they seem to have a reverence about them while they're at Lizard Rock. And I got to tell you, if I could be a lizard for a day, holy shit, I'd want to just hang out at Lizard Rock. Anyway, okay, so that's, it's like Fraggle Rock, but lizards. Actually, the more I say Lizard Rock, I'm like, am I talking about Fraggle Rock? So people of a certain age will understand Fraggle Rock. So the science story, the story that science is telling us. Science is telling us a story. Everything in this world is a story, right? And I don't know. I came to this realization way too late. It's within the last year or two, I think, right? Where I was just like, everything's a story, man. Everything's a story. And I just keep saying that over and over again as if it's going to mean more each time I say it. And it does, because that's the story I'm telling myself. Science also has a story to tell. Science's story is the scientific method. At its heart, science is the begrudging believer, right? Think of science as the character who doesn't, the prove it to me. And then, oh boy, the bigger the skeptic, the harder they fall, the faster they run, and the deeper they believe. That is my own personal opinion. And I think without any proof of concept, that is why in the research studies that show that people who join cults, and we've talked about this a bunch on here, typically are of higher intelligence than the average intelligence, which was one of the surprising things they found about people who joined cults, because most people are like, well, you got to be stupid to join a cult, blah, blah, blah. You got to be gullible and blah, 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 or weak-minded, blah, blah, blah. No, none of that. People who join cults, it's been found that they are of higher than average intelligence, very smart people. And the reason I believe that is because one of the things that is required to make a person a cult leader is they have to perform a miracle. And that is one of the necessary things on a cult leader's checklist. You want to be a cult leader, you better figure out how to perform a miracle for your people. Because if you can't do that, they're not going to go all in. They're not going to push all their chips into the middle of the U pile. Because why would they follow you if you're not different or special or miraculous in some way? So that is the one thing that all cult leaders have in common. They have at the very least made their followers believe that they have performed a miracle of some kind, or have over and over again also shown to be able to perform miracles. Interesting word, perform a miracle, right? So that miracle is defined by the person who witnesses or experiences it. That is an important component to, I think, the definition of miracle. If it's a miracle to the person, that's all that matters, to cement their belief into this leader, this cult leader, right? And now they will do things that they may not have done previously in order to stay close to this person, or to get more information, more healing, more leadership, more guidance, more truth, more knowledge, etc., 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 etc. So, you better be able to perform a miracle out there. If you're thinking about starting a cult, you better get that one figured out. I would say first, right? What kind of miracle would you even? I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know how to start. How do you? I'm not over here. I wouldn't even know where to begin to perform a miracle. So you don't have to worry about me trying to start a cult. Okay, like. It'd be one thing to be like, oh, I'm going to start a cult. Oh, are you? Well, you need people to follow you. You can't just start a cult, okay? You can try to start a cult, but you can't just start a cult. A cult, by definition, you have to have followers to be a cult leader. If no one's following you, you are not a leader. Okay, anyway. So, how did I get over here into this neighborhood of conversation? Let's get back. Where's the street map? The street map of my mind has so many folds. And it's two-sided. It's three-sided. It's four-sided. It's five-sided. It's limitlessly sided. The story of science. So science is telling a story. And that story, the foundation of that story is the scientific method. The begrudging believer, the prove it to me type person, that character, right? So what we have done as human beings, we have invented, oops, that was me hitting the table, I apologize. It's not an EVP. We have created from thin air, so to speak, almost in a miraculous way, the scientific method. We have come up with, we have defined, and many people have devoted their lives to the worshiping or the following, right? We'll say following. I'm not going to say worshiping, right? The following of these rules. And these rules are designed over time to help us be able to understand what is real and what is not real. And also to help us understand what is this and what does it do? What is real? This is real. What is it? What is it made of? What does it do? What happens when it's with this other thing? That's all the scientific method is doing. It is trying to figure out what is real. So the story science is telling us is what is real, right? It's using its lens to try to inform and tell the story about what is the real world around us. And I know it's real because it's made of this, and it comes from this, and it reacts in this way when this happens to it. Over and over and over again. The most reliable thing we could ever have is the scientific method on this thing showing that this is what happens when you do this to it every single time. And don't we just love a reliable person? Don't we love someone we can count on? Don't we just love someone we can trust? Don't we love someone who we can predict what they will do? They don't surprise us in bad ways. But then on the other hand, they don't surprise us in good ways either, do they? Not very often, right? If something is steady, there are certain things in life we want to be steady on. I get it. My blood pressure, my cholesterol level, whatever. I want that stuff to be steady. I want it to, just stay the course. I want my health to be healthy. Stay the course. No surprises, right? The scientific method is a story. It's a story about how to know what is real. And this story was created out of thin air. It was invented. It was made up. It was discovered, some might say, right? So you have this story that science is telling us about what is real. But here's the thing. The storyteller doesn't understand, potentially, that it's missing a big part of the story. That just because it's telling the story about everything that is real and is not, doesn't mean it's not wrong. Doesn't mean that its viewpoint, its narrative, isn't limited in scope. I think it's a silly storyteller who would tell any story about the universe and think that their story is the only story. Religions do this, and they really try hard to convert other people to their version of the story. Why? Because it helps remove doubt. Like, oh, maybe I could be wrong if this person's so devoted to theirs. Does that mean that mine is not right? Is that what happens with the scientific method and the materialistically minded people who are so into physicalism that it's like, I can't allow space for the paranormal because it might mean that mine's not right, that my belief system is incorrect, that the story doesn't tell the whole story? We don't have to think like that. That's very limiting. There is space at the top for everybody. That is like one of the greatest illusions, scarcity. And scarcity is controlled by gatekeepers, and it is projected, and it is fabricated, when in fact there's not a scarcity of food. There's plenty of food to feed everybody. We all know that, but we don't do it because there's gatekeepers to the food. Why are we paying for water? Why does one person on this planet pay for water? There is absolutely no reason that water distribution and access shouldn't be a global citizen right. No one on the planet should have to pay for water. Also, maybe don't live in the desert. Human beings, we like to live everywhere, even if we're not, naturally supposed to, apparently. Thrive there in great numbers. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about living there at all. I'm talking about like building mega cities in a place where there's no water access. Oh, what could possibly go wrong? Nothing, they said as I booked my next trip to Vegas. So science is telling this story. Doesn't mean it's the only story in the world. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. Okay? And it also doesn't mean it's totally right. You're not wrong if you're not totally right. Does that make sense? Just because you're not totally right doesn't mean you're wrong. Science has done wonderful things. The only reason you can hear this podcast right now is because of how wonderful science is. Scientifically minded people have created, have invented, have tested so many things over the years, and we build upon this knowledge, and the knowledge gets bigger and bigger and better, hopefully, right? That's why people are living longer. Science, medicine, we have expanded our lifespans. People just take this for granted that, especially the conspiratorially minded people who think that the whole medical community is into trying to just profit off their illness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the vaccines are, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, do you forget that we're living longer than we've ever lived in our lives? And it's bonkers. We've like tripled our lifespan, if I had to guess. If I'm just throwing out a number there. It's amazing what science has done and what medicine has done for the human being. That's why there are more people on the planet now than there ever have been. It's because we like to fuck, but also we don't like condoms, but also because medicine, the advancements in medicine and surgeries and science. It is safer and it is easier to get medicine and to get cured from being sick or to be fixed after having injuries than it ever has been right now in this moment. I appreciate that. I really, really do. So the story science is telling isn't the full story, but it's also just a story. It's a story that has a belief system, that has a main character that really, really believes in the story it's telling, in the things it's discovered along its journey. Along its journey, science has discovered the scientific method to help it make sense of the world around them, to understand what is real and what they can do and how they can use the world around them to create in the physical world the thing from their immaterial imagination. Do you understand how beautiful that is? We have used the scientific method to create everything around us. We have used our imagination, our hands, and just our deduction to create things, to invent things, to make things. Doesn't mean it's the only story that's happening. There's so many stories happening. Everything is a story inside of the biggest story of all, which is the mystery of existence itself. Will we find the answer when we come to the end of our portion of the story? God, many of us hope we do. When our story is over, many of us hope we get to know all the stuff. Or do we just get thrown back into the beginning of the story and have to do it all over again, but in a different way, and then learn more about the story on that new but separate journey. RyanSingerComedy.com. Tour dates. I love you. I hope you love yourself. Hope to see you at a show. If not, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.